This week, WWE Rivals on A&E reviewed an interesting feud. I'm actually curious how much of this you initially saw. Triple H and Batista.
Well, and actually, since I told you to call it on the fly here, let me find my notes on the Triple H and Batista. There they are. See? I got them right here.
Oh, I see.
So the answer to your question is almost none of this. Here's the thing. I believe they, obviously in 2002, Batista made his debut as the deacon of Devon's, or was Devon the deacon and he was the box carrier, or Deacon Batista for Reverend Devon, or
That's
whatever
what it was, I think. Yeah.
All right. That's around the time that I started checking out of watching WWE programming, to be quite honest with you, because I was involved with OVW business every day. And I finally started making Thursday, the day after the TV taping, where sometimes I wouldn't get back home till midnight, 1, 2 in the morning or whatever, if we were doing a big show coming up and a lot of post-production, whatever. So I would sleep late, and I'd have Thursday as my non-wrestling day. And Thursday was SmackDown in those days. I'd record it, but I'd never have time to watch it because 6 other days of the week I was goddamn busy with OVW. And also, between Batista becoming a deacon and all of the other crummy gimmicks that they were starting to give the guys, it just pissed me off anyway. So as a result, from about 2003-ish to, when did we start watching this shit? Like 4 years ago.
You mean Rivals?
No, I don't mean Rivals. I mean all of the modern wrestling. When Tony Khan decided he's going to get in the wrestling business, and we were watching the WWF big shows there, the big shows anyway, and we started paying a little more attention to them about 4 years ago. Between 2003 and 2018, I only watched whatever the fuck I was doing. Like when after OVW, when I was working a little bit for Ring of Honor, but most of TNA, I saw TNA, tried to keep up with Ring of Honor. And then after TNA, I saw Ring of Honor for about 3 years. And then I didn't watch any shit at all for about 3 years. And then here we are. So I didn't see a lot of this first time around. And also, I said that was about the time that they had hired a couple of writers before, but that's about the time that the whole thing became like 25 writers in the WWE at least. And yeah, it gave me gas. So anyway, I did enjoy, again, the seeing the brief old footage. They had Kane against Leviathan when Batista was Leviathan at the Gardens in OVW, and Kane was talking about he came in to work with him, but he forgets he came in twice. Do you know the other one?
Russ McCullough?
No. I said he came in twice to wrestle. I'm sorry, I didn't say it right. He came in twice to wrestle Leviathan, Batista.
Oh, no, I don't know the second one.
Believe it or not, and this is great, I've got a poster in my office. The main event of there's a casino in Rising Sun, Indiana. And Les Thatcher, then the HWA, sold a show there and had some of our guys come up, and he got some guys from the office, and it ended up the main event at this little bitty teeny casino show in Rising Sun, Indiana in like 2001 was Kane versus Batista. But it didn't draw like that because nobody fucking knew who the fuck Batista was in 2001. And actually in Rising Sun, Indiana, Kane was a big deal, but there was only like 1,000 people in the whole fucking town to begin with. But anyway, so it was twice they wrestled. Triple H saying he was a sponge, he was always hungry and wanted to learn, he wanted it. This is the exact opposite of what all of our impressions were of him in OVW as a guy who sat in the corner, was kind of meek, didn't want to speak up, and waited to be told what to do. And I'm wondering if when he got up there and they fucking put a suit jacket on him with no sleeves and had him carrying a box around his neck, if it was made clear to him that, Jesus Christ, if you don't do something, you're going to be out of here. And that's when it's well known and it's been documented. He started working out with and having close relationship with Triple H. But we saw the athletic ability and the fact that he was nimble. He could do the spine buster and bounce up and the spear, and look at that physique and the goddamn face and the fucking tattoos is enough. There is an opponent there for Undertaker, for Big Show at the time, for the pollen alert here in Louisville because of the unseasonably screwy weather. But no, for Undertaker, for Kane, for Big Show, for all of the giants, for, we didn't really know at that point when we first got him that Steve Austin was, his days in the business were numbered. But The Rock was still active. So, you see a guy that looks like that and you say, okay, yes, but as I've mentioned before, already past 30, right? Well, we figured out his age before, but this was 2000 and 2001, so he was past 30, somewhat injury prone and not a natural worker. How do we get, probably brief but hopefully spectacular career of him, being an opponent on pay-per-view for all these giant monsters that the WWF has?
He was born in 69.
Okay, so when we got him, he was 32. Yeah. So anyway.
Was he the oldest person you guys
were Rico.
Oh, that's right. Rico Constantino, of course.
Rico was like either 38 or 39 and looked like he was 25.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, I'm just saying that with Batista, that was the thing that we had is he didn't seem, I don't want to say he was just a quiet guy, soft-spoken guy. He was the farthest thing you'd think from a movie star. I had, Stacey, I had dinner with him and his wife one time at the Tumbleweed down the road from the Davis Arena, I think it was. And he was just like, you couldn't barely hear him over the booth, the table. And he would sit in the corner. And, he was always got the hoodie on and the fucking sweatshirt because he's cold. And like when I mentioned the Rising Sun Casino match. Here's Kane. I think that one was even before we did the one at the Gardens. I can't remember for sure. But there's Glenn Jacobs sitting down in front of him. And the reason why that we had booked it was so that same reason why I booked Undertaker to wrestle Glenn Jacobs in Knoxville, 5 years before that. Audition a potential opponent. And, there was Dave Batista was going, oh, whatever you want to do. And I was like, tell him what you can do. You do the spear, you do the spine buster. You hear Glenn, here's his gimmick, kind of blah, blah, blah. And so, somewhere between us smashing him over in OVW and then him going up there and getting completely stripped of the whole gimmick and everything attractive about him and being made a manservant, was he either figured out to be more assertive, take more charge of things, and also who to start working out in the gym with. Because, but I guess that's, hold that thought. That's why I'm saying when Batista acts like Triple H, he said he was the first one to see something in him. What the fuck? I'm not even talking about just me. And that's why they signed him at past 30, because look at him. Everybody saw something in him. And I saw that's why he was the most undefeated, most put over OVW champion and top fucking heel of all time with an invincible gimmick that he sold nothing. Because we all had Jim Ross and Bruce Pritchard. Everybody saw, okay, this guy's going to be a guy that fucking works with our big guys or he ain't going to work out at all. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. But in the past, and I don't have any direct quotes here, but I think Batista's been one of the guys, and maybe even Triple H speaking on his behalf, to almost not necessarily put down the OVW training system, but the way he was trained specifically. So when you look at the way he was used eventually, once he got in with Triple H, put in with Evolution, they had plans for him. What do you think is fair? What do you think is unfair about the criticism that you or Danny Davis or OVW as a whole have received at times in the past about the training or the management of Leviathan or Batista?
Okay,
preparing him for the main roster.
Okay. I think he did great as Batista once they started pushing him. Like I said, the Deacon thing didn't work out too well. But when they put him in Evolution and they grouped him together with Triple H, Flair, and Orton, and then Triple H grooms him, and that was the whole story of this Rivals episode, grooms him to be the guy to break out of that group and have the rivalry with, and is probably the only guy that Triple H really put over, not once, but 2 or 3 times in a row. We'll check the notes here in a second. At that time period to get him over, it was a hot deal, yes. So I'm not saying that he had to be Leviathan or nothing. What I was saying was we gave the guy who had had a dozen matches, maybe. As soon as he got here, he got hurt and he had to sit out for 3 months. He tore some kind of arm muscle, had to have surgery. He's already past 30 and he looks like that. So we gave him a gimmick to work with Undertaker or Kane or Big Show or whatever the fuck, if they wanted to use it, and they never said they were going to, and they didn't have to. But I couldn't get this green fucking guy over, even to my local people, just as here's Dave Batista, folks, because he was a meek, mild, he wasn't a movie star. As I said, you barely knew he was in the locker room. And it was his ex-wife, unfortunately, his ex-wife, she passed away. She had a illness. But at the time, he was just a little homebody character that didn't stand out in the way of personality. And so in that case, make his visual look the fucking, and his size the story. Because he can't talk. And he doesn't really have a lot of personality. Now, later on, 3 years later, suddenly he decides to become a fucking movie star and he's dating all kinds of women and he's fucking, buying all these expensive cars. That wasn't the Dave Batista that we got in Louisville in 2000.
One thing they did not mention, or if they did, I missed it, but I don't think they mentioned it in the special. What do you remember about Mark Jindrak? Because wasn't he originally in Evolution before they decided to go with Batista instead?
They
shot vignettes with him and Randy Orton and Flair and Triple H.
And that was Laurinaitis was just getting started having some kind of influence there because for whatever reason, Laurinaitis, I guess because they were in WCW together, Laurinaitis loved Sean O'Haire and Mark Jindrak. And Sean O'Haire, yes, did have the physique and athletic ability that you would have thought, but the problem was he didn't get it mentally and had issues. And he had that one really good, oh God damn it, where he was like the devil speaking on your shoulder. What was the gimmick? I can't remember. He did vignettes for, but people overlooked. They were like 10-second video clips or audio clips of him put together. He couldn't do that promo. To give him 2 minutes in front of a microphone, he'd be off in the fucking field. And Jindrak was he was another guy. He had athletic ability for his size, but I think Laurinaitis saw a kindred spirit because he had no real physique and no real personality and was just bleh. So they swapped Jindrak out and put Batista in, who had the bigger upside because of his look. But what was your question?
Well, that was kind of my question, just what you remembered about that. Because again, originally they didn't go with Batista. Originally they thought, they never mentioned that here. It was always like, we thought this is the guy. Yeah. But originally they thought someone else was the guy.
Well, see, Jindrak should have spent more time in the gym at Stanford with Triple H. But
What did you think about the idea of Batista being put with Randy Orton with Flair and Triple H? Just because you had both of those guys. Did you ever see them meshing well together like this?
Well, yeah, because again, the Four Horsemen were completely separate individuals, but they looked good together and they looked like they would hang out together. And with Flair in the group, you know you're going to have an Orton because they're, it's public knowledge among pretty much every wrestling fan that Orton's father, Bob Orton Jr. and Flair have had a long history and been friends, blah, blah, blah. That kind of fits. And Triple H has aligned himself as a student and a, devotee of Ric Flair. But then you've got the muscle. It's almost like they got there's the Luger of the Horsemen. Look at that fucking body. He's green, but he's got 6 things he can do fucking great. And look at him. Did we mention look at him? And then once that I can't say we ever gave him Leviathan promos because the problem is his voice never matched up to that gimmick or what you would create in your mind, right? Because he's just a normal guy. But when he's got hair or some kind of hair and he's wearing a suit and, stylish clothing and sunglasses, okay, he can kind of have a normal voice. And then he actually kind of got some fucking personality. But if you'd have said to anybody in the OVW locker room at the time, you think Batista'd ever be the life of the party? What? It was a change in personality in a short period of time. Maybe it was the big paychecks that started coming in.
That'll do it.
But anyway, that again, they had him in the group, and then finally he's the one's had all I can stands, can't stands no more, and says no to Triple H, and goes into the 2005 Rumble and wins it. And I love seeing this footage because, again, we see the stuff from the 90s Attitude Era and say, gosh, it looks so much better than today. But this stuff was still looking better than today. It gets more recent. But then, of course, he picks Triple H to face for the title at WrestleMania. And, after Triple H had thought that he had him hoodwinked and everything, and one power bomb through a fucking table in 2005 could draw millions of dollars for the main event at WrestleMania. And now a power bomb through a table is segments 3, 6, and 8.
You know what? They left a big thing out of this documentary, though, and it didn't tell the whole story because of it. They all made a big deal out of, before the power bomb, Batista gave the thumbs up and switched it to thumbs down. Flair's face turned and Triple H was scared. The whole reason why that meant something was, what was it, a year earlier or so? When Randy Orton got the belt. Remember? He was on Batista's shoulders, and Flair and Triple H gave him the thumbs up. They turned it to thumbs down because he got the belt instead of Triple H. Batista dropped him. That's when they turned Randy Orton babyface and Evolution turned on him. So,
well, see there,
that established the thumbs up spot as meaning something. They needed to point that out here.
Well, if I were you, I would write a stern letter to the WWE offices.
I'm going to write it to Freddie Prinze and his investigators and say, hey, you guys did a bad job here.
There you go. When they're in the forensic lab there that they're doing those cutaways in. So anyway, they do good promos back and forth. They have the WrestleMania 2005 match. Batista wins. And then the next pay-per-view rematch, Batista wins. And then Hell in a Cell that summer, Batista wins. And Triple H was bleeding in every match. And Batista goes 3-0 again. Yes, I would think at that point he would be over. Because has anybody ever done that to Triple H in history before?
I don't know.
Or after.
And again, that came off a period of time where, for a few years, certain fans, were getting sick of Triple H because he was going over everyone and putting them down in promos, not selling any insults directed at him. He was the cool heel that fans didn't necessarily take as the cool heel. See, the thing is, Triple H needed Ric Flair in a way more than Flair needed Triple H. Now, Flair needed Triple H, but Triple H needed that credibility because he was a guy that was pushed at times beyond where fans wanted him, and they were still trying to find a way to make that all work.
But boy, howdy, when he decided he was going to make somebody, he made him. And it just so happens the guy was bigger and had a stronger, better body, but also would be beholden to him. And again, then they were apart for a few years, and then Batista said, fuck it, and quit the business. And I've mentioned this before, and I'm happy now he's a big movie star. But I was right. When we saw him in OVW, I said, if we can get 5 years or so out of this guy at the top, then that's what we should be shooting for, because he's either going to get hurt, or at the time, I was not necessarily convinced that he was sold on making this his life's work. And that's what, remember, we said, we had somebody write in and do the math for us and email it to us that he was there for 7 years, but if you take out the 2 injury time offs or whatever, that he had a 5-year career. Okay, I was like 3 or 4 months off or whatever. And that's fine, because now he's a movie star. So I don't want anybody fucking persecuting me because I've run him off of Twitter. But anyway, and then he went Hollywood, and he wanted to have one last match with Triple H, and that's, they did it on the SmackDown 1000, the reunion, and he makes a little swipe at Triple H, and they, oh my God, they showed the footage from the Saudi Arabia. Was that the Saudi Arabia show before we started watching any of this stuff, the last one? Because
it may have been 2018. One of the first ones.
It was 5 years ago. I don't remember ever seeing Shawn Michaels bald. Where they did Taker and Kane against Triple H and Michaels was completely shaved bald there. I was like, oh my fuck. But it was, so Triple H tears his pec, and now will he make Mania to fight Batista, who I thought was the fucking injury prone one. But finally they set it up, and Triple H finally won, so that they could all hug and kiss, and Batista can retire in peace. So that it was a heartwarming ending to this long-running 5-year career he fucking had. The 9-month rivalry in his 5-year career that everybody remembers. Well, I don't mean to be condescending.
Well, that was WWE Rivals, Batista versus Triple H, condescending or not. That's what it was. But